Hey, happy Saturday. It's been 2 weeks since I posted my last minimalism thoughts. I had to skip a week just due to some issues. One was I actually kind of hurt myself. I'm fine. Little motorcycle incident, just dealing with a little bit of road rash leftovers here and there, so no big deal there. But this week I want to talk about something that is related to minimalism and something that I don't think a lot of people think about. Because at least here in America, we're all driven towards more money, bigger houses, more stuff, better jobs and status, prestige, etc. And I get that, and I don't judge anybody who looks for those kinds of things. I did for a long time. I don't anymore. But I want to talk about three instances in particular where we downsized in a minimalistic kind of mindset that has really helped us. Couple caveats. I know that not A, everybody can do this. B, I'm going to share some things about income and things we used to have. I don't want anybody to misunderstand that as this is me saying, "Ooh, look what I had," or "Look how much I made," or anything like that. Because I don't have those things anymore, as you'll see, and I don't make nearly as much as I used to. And that's actually by design, which because I don't work full time. I haven't since I left Google in 2017. I basically work part-time when I mostly want to, and I'm probably making 25% of what I used to make at Google, to be quite honest. So I understand that a lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'm very lucky, blessed, has come through with, yes, hard work, but I also recognize also through privilege. And that's something I'm coming to understand a lot more as I get older. So again, just keep all that in mind as I discuss these things, because I don't want anybody to get the wrong ideas here. So, okay, so downsizing. When I worked for Google in 2016 and through 2017, I then lived in a 3,000 square foot home, 3-car garage, 1 acre of land. It was a development of 35 brand new homes that were built in 2003. So it was, 15 years that maybe 13 years that we lived there at the time. It was too much of a mortgage payment. We could afford it. My wife and I at the time both had 6-figure salaries. So we could afford it, but it was still too much in the fact that I was like, why are we paying this high mortgage amount, high taxes, and having all this space to maintain heat, cool, clean, etc., when it was really just, at the time, 3 of us, my wife, my stepdaughter, and me. And I knew my stepdaughter was getting older, was going to go on to college in a few years. So I'm like, let's do something radical. Let's downsize. We don't need to financially, but it would just make sense to. And we ended up selling that house and moving to where we are now, which is an end-unit townhouse. The value of this townhouse was about half of the value of the other house. And we still had plenty of a mortgage on that one. So it's not like we bought this outright or anything. I have a mortgage on this house. But it's well over $1,100 a month less, which adds up over time. I mean, that's $11,000 over 10 months. So add another $2,200. That's $13,200 a year less for the mortgage and the taxes and so on. The bills here are less because it's less to heat, less to cool. It's like 1,900 square feet. That's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 1-car garage, which is really even hard to put a car in. They're very narrow. Not much land, obviously. It's a townhouse, but we don't have to take care. I don't have to mow the lawn for 2 hours every 4, 5, 6 days. I don't have to buy a $1,200 tractor and maintain that. It's easier to clean. It's quicker to clean. It's less stuff, as I've shown in my last or previous videos. So, and we're using more of it. So to me, we're getting more value out of it. So that was a big deal for us. And now I'm actually glad that we lowered the payment from a financial standpoint, because in 2017 I had some health issues. I left Google and decided I'm gonna try blogging again on my own. I do that at about Chromebooks, and I don't make a ton of money there. I mean, if I don't figure it out per hour because I don't work 40 hours a week on it. I try and do 15, maybe 20 hours a week on that, and then 15 to 20 hours a week on other things that I enjoy, such as my motorcycling and learning to code and so on and so forth. So the point is that by reducing our payment before I actually left Google, which I hadn't planned to leave, and taking that big income hit, I mean, it actually was really good. Like we would have had to have sold the other house at that point if we hadn't already. So I would say just think about what is enough. And I'll link to a video, not that I did, but a TED Talk about that very question. What is enough? Because most people don't go for what is enough. They go for what do I want instead of what do I really need and how much is enough. This house is enough. It's more than enough now just for two of us. It's just me and my wife. We're empty nesters. The kids are out. It's us and the dog. So, and it's very stress-free, as I've shown in the previous videos. So, getting back to or tying in the what is enough aspect and minimalism, about 3 years ago, it's during COVID, I built myself a gaming PC because I wanted to get into gaming again. And I've been gaming since the original Pong that came out from Magnavox, the Pong hardware. I mean, it's all it played. So I go all the way back. And I built the gaming PC. I probably spent about $1,800 on it. I don't mind that. It was all good components. I learned a lot. But I got a Switch maybe almost a year ago. And I found out that this is enough for me. And I'm spending 95% of my gaming time on this. And it cost me $529 versus the $1,800 PC that I have upstairs. So I decided when I'm using that PC for non-gaming stuff, which is really the only reason I still used it, I'm drawing a ton of power. The GPU, if I ever play games, the GPU can easily pull 300 watts. The power supply in there is like 1,000 watt power supply. When I'm going crazy on that thing, it'll draw 500-600 watts of power. And I'm like, why am I doing that for like just coding web stuff and browsing the web and all that? And yeah, I use Chromebooks and all that. I could have just gotten maybe a Chromebox or something. But instead, a couple months ago, I spent $299 on this little desktop mini PC. It is a desktop PC, but it's built with laptop parts. So it's very low power usage. There's no power brick. I mean, there's a power brick. You plug into this barrel connector in the back, but it's not, I think it's maybe a 50 or 60 watt power brick. And quite honestly, the chip inside here and the integrated graphics, which are actually okay for some light gaming, not AAA titles, I think it maxes out at around 35 to 40 watts, which is a massive difference in how much electricity I use. And I don't need to waste electricity. I mean, I don't want to say it's a shared resource because we all pay for it, but in a sense it is shared because there's only so much of it. We have to generate it and so on. So it's like, why am I spending all this heat and electricity for this massive PC when I can just have this little thing tucked behind the monitor? It's quiet, there is a fan, but it never runs, and save on juice. So that's what I did. And I'm gonna sell the other PC. I'm not gonna get $1,800 for it, but that's fine. I don't care about that. It's not about that. It's about what is enough. So I downsized my PC. The third instance is actually something I am considering right now. For those of you who don't know, I mentioned I ride a motorcycle. Yes, I hurt myself last week. I'm fine. I got my license last year and I bought a used 2015 Moto Guzzi V7 Stone. It's more bike than I thought I would need at 750 cc's, but it wasn't too little that I would buy a bike and then eventually upgrade to something like this. So it's been good for me. However, I'm not, and this is a big secret, so don't tell anybody, I'm not a very big guy. And the Guzzi weighs about 430, 440 pounds when fully loaded with fuel. Well, that's tough for me to move around. Granted, when you're riding it, it's effortless, but to move it in and out of the driveway and do K-turns in the driveway out of the garage to get it out on the road, literally my heart rate shoots up and I'm like so out of shape that I gotta sit for 5 minutes just to catch my breath before I actually go ride once I move it outside. So it's manageable. Obviously, I've used it for a year now and I do enjoy it, but it may be too much for me. So yesterday I rode the bike into Philadelphia and I looked at a brand new Royal Enfield Hunter 350. That's a 350cc bike with less than half the horsepower, about half the torque. So obviously it is a downgrade. It is a smaller bike. The seat height is about 0.6 inches shorter. I can flat foot that bike, whereas the Guzzi, I can't. One side maybe, but my other foot is like barely a toe on the ground. And if I was a better rider, that wouldn't be an issue. But I've only been riding for a year. It just may be a better fit for me. And actually, the Guzzi being a bigger, better bike for people who want more horsepower, I'm sure I could sell it for maybe $5,000, $4,500, somewhere in there. The new Royal Enfield Hunter is $39.99. And when you add in all your taxes and dealer fees and everything else, it did come out to, the quote was $5,400. But it would either be like a practically zero out-of-pocket upgrade or just, $500 to maybe a little bit more to upgrade. I say upgrade, to downgrade. To downgrade, it actually would cost me a little bit. But in the end, it's gonna get better fuel mileage. It gets almost double the miles per gallon. It's easier for me to ride. I know that already just from having been on it and seeing it and having a year with the Guzzi under my belt. And frankly, where it really falls short for most motorcycle riders is once you get up to about 60 miles an hour on that, it's pretty slow to get up to 70, 75, and about 75 is about your top speed. But then I thought about it. Let's think about what is enough. Is that enough for me to be able to easily do 60? I think back to the Moto Guzzi, my riding for last year. Yeah, that's enough for me. I mean, I don't really go far. And when I do, it's mostly back roads. I took our Pennsylvania Turnpike down to Philadelphia yesterday. And yeah, the speed limit is 70. And I was doing 70 on the Guzzi. I could do 70 on the Hunter 350 and just stay in the right lane. Maybe it's not ideal because I can't accelerate quickly and pass somebody, but chances are most people are gonna be passing me. And I ride smart enough, at least I hope so, to not put myself in a situation where I really need to get out of the way really fast and have a super fast acceleration. So the very few times I'm on those roads, I could do it with the Hunter. And honestly, I just don't go on the roads like that much. Most of the roads I ride max out at 55. This bike is perfectly fine for it. So it is a downgrade, and it will minimize, things in here because it's easier to manage. I don't have to worry about dropping that bike or worry about it as much, and I won't have to worry about moving it around so much, and am I gonna drop it, and am I gonna be catching my breath for 5 minutes? It just makes sense to me. It's enough. So I haven't made my decision on that yet. I'm still thinking it through, but I wanted to illustrate a decision that I'm considering to downsize something in my life. Heck, I didn't even get into actual benefits that other than the main physical benefits of the bike. I mean, the Guzzi doesn't have a fuel gauge, doesn't have a gear indicator, it doesn't have ABS, it doesn't have a center stand to prop the bike up on to work on it. What else? There were a couple other things, but the Hunter, I would gain ABS, fuel gauge, a gear indicator. These are nice things to have. I don't necessarily need them, but the ABS is certainly a safety factor, for example, and as still a beginning rider, the gear indicator would be nice to have as well. It's also a wet clutch versus the Guzzi's dry clutch, which if that doesn't mean anything to you, let's just say it's a lot easier to have a wet clutch like most bikes do. The Guzzi does not, and that's a heavy clutch and just metal on metal, no lubrication, so that's a whole other issue. So there's some downsides as well, but honestly, I did pros and cons. The downgrade or downsize is actually has a lot more benefits than costs. So anyway, think about this in your life. I mean, if you've got too much going on, you got either too many bills, too many things. I mean, we downsized from 2 cars to 1. Again, not everybody can do that, but we were able to do that, and we bought a Tesla. And we invested more in the Tesla because we figured we'd have it for the long term, and we only drive, gosh, it's been a year, and we haven't even driven 7,000 miles. And I think the electricity cost to go those 7,000 miles, last I checked, was like $245. Would have been a lot more in gas, Again, I recognize not everybody's just gonna go out and get a Tesla, or not everybody's going to have a 3,000 square foot house where they can downsize, and there are people working their way up, and I respect that and appreciate that. But there are a lot of us who have done that, and we're still chasing that, and I question why. Again, not a judgment, but maybe it's time for you to question why. Something to think about. Cheers.